And this next person, I had to literally just minutes ago, I'm sorry, I got to take it. Because the person you're about to hear from is our keynote for the day. Everyone's been keynotes. But Hope has a very special place in my heart. She has, in some realms, taken me under her wing. In other realms, I've kicked her into her own walking water moments. But you, for some reason, I've said this to my team so much this year, I said, I don't know why. I don't know why she said yes. I don't know why she wrote the foreword to my book. I don't know why God brought us together. But I know our stories have power and our marriages have momentum because of God. And I know the calling on your life is so beyond what you've even experienced to this point. And my heart in Grow Your Business for God's sake is for you to know your value. Alone. Not even with Ron, though with Ron is where you're meant to be, but as a separate entity too. And so I thank you for loving me. I thank you for being a sister, for traveling the world together, and for writing words, not just in my book, but in the new book, in the shared anthology with all of the other authors. Where are our anthology authors? Can we just shout you out? Some of these people are best-selling authors for the first time. You all have to get Hope's book out front. If you read hers as the prequel to mine, I mean, it's just boom. God shows up in every detail of our life. But this morning when I was reading, I knew I wanted to share. When I talked to you guys about Proverbs 3, and it said, wisdom bestows well-being, there's a specific area that I just attribute to you. It says, blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding. For she is more profitable than silver and yields better returns than gold. She is more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand, and in her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are pleasant ways, and all of her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who take hold of her. Those who hold her fast will be blessed. I hold you fast. I love you. Doesn't matter.
To take old broken things and to reshape them and conform them into his image. Ooh, come on, somebody.
Woo!
And we have got to learn how to stay steady. We have got to learn how to stay committed. We have got to learn how to praise through our pain. He's still God when you're sick. He's still God when your marriage is on the rocks. He's still God when you broke. He's still God when you lose your job. He's still God when people let you down. He's still God when you lose your job. He's still God when your children cuss you out. He's still God when your spouse steps out on you. He's still God. Yes, he is. I cannot stand not seeing you. Can y'all turn the lights on? I mean, is that against the rules? People who work here at the church? Can you turn the lights on? Yes, no, maybe? Are they coming? Look! Praise his holy name. We should have done this from the beginning, right? Well, I am super pumped to be here and literally humbled every time I take a microphone because I know that in the natural I shouldn't be here. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not rich enough. I don't own businesses to be in this platform. Yes, we have entities and all of those things, but unlike the rest of y'all, I mean, I'm in the church world. I can't sell it and make anything, so I'm probably the poorest one in the room, and y'all got the bank accounts, and I'm the last keynote speaker, and I'm the oldest. Y'all saved the oldest for last. Y'all didn't save the best for last. You saved the oldest for last. The wisest. That's it. The brightest. Hey! I was like, when Glenn Lundy was speaking, I was like, I'm going to go ask him, do you have an opening in your organization? Because I would really love 7 weeks off. I mean, how many of you would like 7 weeks off? I think we're going to start that at our church because I just think it's phenomenal because I scrounge and hunt just for days off. How many of you just scrounge and have to hunt? So 7 complete weeks off, I think it's a word from God. From every one of you, he was prophetic, not pathetic. He was prophetic today for us. So I'm completely humbled and pumped. And Tamara, for your heart, for your vision to integrate faith into business. It's just hardly ever talked about. It's hardly ever done. But I think as a Christian, I mean, if we are Christians, we are supposed to integrate our faith into every single aspect of our life, whether it's our business, whether it's our marriage, whether it is our raising children or dating or social media. I mean, some people need to really back up and integrate Jesus in their social media. I mean, in our money, in our taxes, all of it. So I'm a pastor, I'm a pastor's wife, so no matter what context you find me in, my message is always the same. And it is this, it's to know God, it is to find freedom, and it's to discover purpose. It's to know God, find freedom, and discover purpose. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and how I got here and see why I am so passionate about knowing God, finding freedom, and discovering purpose. I married the love of my life at 21 years old. I'm 53. I'll be 54 in January. Don't forget it, January 22nd. I love gifts. It's my love language. Send them to me. It doesn't matter. It could be little ones. It could be a coffee cup. I don't care, but just send me something because that really means a lot to me. And we struck out in ministry immediately after Bible school. I had a music degree. I taught voice for many years when we couldn't. I mean, it's the only thing that put food on the table. And then I went and got an education degree, and I taught school for a few years till I started having my babies. And my husband calls me the most educated housewife he's ever met. So we struck out into ministry in this little warehouse building in August in South Carolina with no heat or air. That's wisdom. Now, that's wisdom. I'm telling you, that's wisdom. We started having kids with no insurance. We raised our kids, had our kids on the welfare system with that cheese that don't melt. I know none of y'all entrepreneurs know anything about that because y'all were born with silver spoons in your mouth and didn't have to do what we did. But we had no money. I mean, we were broke. We were broker than the people in our church. They'd come to us and ask for help. We're like, I can't help you. You got to help me. Y'all got some groceries? Who we going out to eat with today? I mean, it was awful. It was terrible. We had green shower curtains to cover up the loading dock. It was supposed to look like curtains, but it was shower curtains. Y'all, it was pitiful. It was humble beginnings and hard times. And I worked 3 jobs so that Ron wouldn't have to work so he could focus on the church. So here we are out there grinding, struggling, just trying to storm hell with a water pistol, just trying to love everybody and get everybody saved and fight the devil and pick up everybody in my van that you had to do like this going down a hill so it would crank, just picking up people on the way to church. We were just trying to love everybody and build a multicultural church in deep South, in South Carolina. And I mean, we just wanted to break all those barriers, and God did it. But about 35 years old, several years into it, 35 years old, I woke up one day and something snapped in me. And I woke up that day and I said, F you, and you, and you, and you, all y'all. Not forgive either. It wasn't the forgive word. It was the ugly F word. I am telling them. And I woke up, seriously, I woke up that day and I just had an emotional breakdown. And what you didn't know and what I didn't know was how I was raised had truly affected my relationships and who I was as an adult. My parents were very abusive. They fought day and night. They were Christians, So that played such a terrible mind game for me, because I'd see them in church worshiping God. Then we'd go home and everybody's fussing and cussing and throwing things and threatening divorce 24/7. And I would be punched around the room and blood coming down my leg, beat with switches. And it was just very, very hard growing up, the household. And when I met Ron, I never told him any of this. Because I had learned up to that point that you have to perform and you have to be good to be loved and you have to be perfect all the time to gain approval and to look the right way in church. And I was raped when I was 15. I never told a soul because I knew that it would be my fault if I got home and told my parents. And who knows what would have happened, as far as punishment for me. So I learned to perform my whole life. And I also learned to lie, because lying kept me from getting in trouble. It kept me from getting the blood running down my legs. So it had set up patterns in my life that I had no idea that were still operating in my life as a woman who loved Jesus, loved my husband, loved the church, wanted to do right, but I was dying on the inside. I thought just because my name had changed and my address had changed, that everything had changed for me. But it didn't. You can build a beautiful house. Oh, I'm talking about elaborate, beautiful, your dream house, where your wallpaper matches your curtains kind of house. Country club house. But if you don't have the foundation built correctly, if the plumbing behind the walls wasn't attached right, eventually that house is going to have trouble. And that was me at 35 years old. It looked good. I should have been happy. I had a great husband, had 3 healthy, gorgeous kids. Church finally was growing. We could go out to eat on the weekend. It wasn't just hot dogs and beanie weenies anymore. But I don't know if you know those pressure cookers. My grandmama cooked green beans in a pressure cooker. Y'all ain't country like I was, but am. But my grandmama would cook green beans in a pressure cooker. And in a pressure cooker, it just builds and builds and builds and builds. And then finally, it just blows. Well, that was me. And I did not know all those years why I was not in the same environment. I was in a brand new, good environment, but I was still the same on the inside. I still felt the anxiety. I still felt the pressure. I still felt nervous. I still had the patterns. I'm talking about that. Listen, I would go get groceries and come home, and Ron would say, now don't spend over, if he said $80. Okay, I'd come home. What if I spent $92? But I'd come home to my husband and he'd say, what'd you spend? I'd write down $80 in the checkbook. Why? Because I didn't want to get in. I didn't want to get in trouble. So it set up patterns in my life. So at 35, when I woke up that day and said, F everybody, it was not a pretty day. I'm glad it was not videoed. But I veered this way. I just turned slightly off the path I was walking. And you know what I did that very day? You ain't going to believe it. Going to hell in a slip and slide. I went and bought a 6-pack of beer. I went and bought a bikini. What? And I went and bought 3 secular CDs. 3! It was Jessica Simpson. Terrible, horrible, terrible. And I went down to the lake and I put on my bikini and I put my Hawaiian tropic on, because see, up to that point I wasn't allowed to wear that. You had to wear the bathing suit with the skirt on it, because that's the church bathing suit. And so I put on my bikini. I was feeling good about myself. I put on that Hawaiian Tropic. It smelled good. I drank every beer. Now, y'all know that was a hot mess because alcohol had not been in my system. Listen, I was wilding out to Jessica Simpson all by myself. Nothing but a T-shirt on. Never felt so beautiful. I mean, I was having me a big time. And my husband gets down to the lake and he walks down and he's like, what is happening? Where is my wife? And so my pop-off answer was, maybe this is your wife. Maybe this is who I'm supposed to be all along. For the first time in my life, guys, it felt so good. It felt so freeing. Not that what I was doing was right, but for the first time in my life, I was making a decision for myself. Nobody was telling me what to do. My parents had not told me, had not put the constraints and the thumb down on me. I wasn't being the perfect preacher's wife, doing what the church said I was supposed to do, what I was supposed to wear, how I was supposed to act. But that took me on 9 years of living a double life. I started just this way with Jessica Simpson. But when I kept walking in that direction for 9 years, look how far I had veered off of the path. I was unfaithful to my husband. It was awful. So in the middle of all of the traumatic events that I was carrying with me since childhood, then knowing that I loved Jesus, I'm carrying all this sin with me now. So I am about to crumble. So in 2013, I came to my husband and I told him everything. He suspected we'd been fighting for 9 years. You know, my dress had changed. My friends had changed. I was going off all the time on girls' weekends, doing God knows what. Yeah, he knows. But you know what? He don't remember anymore. Every time I try to bring it up to him, he's like, what are you talking about? I don't remember that. So in 2013, when I told my husband, and I just knew, because my husband, he ain't like y'all's husband. My husband is like Jesus, walking on water. My husband is the bomb.com. He's near perfect. One day I'm going to wake up and find out that he's really an angel here on this earth. So if you know him, you know I'm telling the truth. He don't raise his voice. He lives what he says. He's a man of principles. He's a giver. He's a lover. He is an amazing preacher. He's just an amazing man. So I thought when I go to him and tell him all these terrible things I've been going through, he's going to rescue me. He said, you got 30 minutes, get your stuff and get out. 30 minutes, get your stuff and get out. Now, y'all, we ain't living on welfare no more and we ain't eating beanie weenies. We got some stuff by this point. So you know what I did? I went and got my good stuff. I got my Louis Vuittons. I said, ain't no other woman gonna come up in my house, have my stuff. Got all my diamonds, got my pocketbooks, got all my good stuff. And I packed them all in my Louis Vuittons and I put them in the back of my Range Rover. And I drove out of my $800,000 house and I had nowhere to go. I got my cell phone and I had nobody to call. Because everybody in our life worked for us. Everybody in our life knew that I was the one that was wrong. They were going to be on Ron's side. But I remembered this place that we sent all the other broken people to, called Living Waters Ministry in North Carolina. So I called them and I said, I just need a bed. I just need a bed. I don't want any advice. Don't preach to me. I just need somewhere to figure out what I'm going to do. I just don't know. I'm getting real good at this bikini thing. I might move to Florida and sell margaritas because I love them in my bikini. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I need a minute. So I get to Living Waters, and I fell flat on my face because the love of Jesus knocked me over. I had nobody. on my team. I had nobody on Team Hope. I had nobody fighting for my marriage. My husband had already contacted a divorce lawyer. He said, I love you, but living with you is too painful. I had no hope of restoration. But as you can see, we've been married 32 years now. Our marriage is a living testimony of what God can do. Our marriage is a living testimony of what God can do when you step out of the way and you let Him build your life. There is a difference. Tamara, when you started this morning, I was like, Tamara, don't preach my message. Now, Tamara, I'm going to have to go on to the mall. You done it. There is a difference in being successful and living in significance. See, we looked like we were successful. At that point in 2013, my husband was on television all over the world. Millions of viewers. I mean, our church had grown to over 20,000 members in South Carolina. It was known as one of the greatest mega churches that had broken all these multicultural barriers. And I mean, just an amazing testimony. And it looked like it was doing great. It looked successful. But behind the curtains, we were dying. We were dying because we were not living a life of significance and fulfilling God's purpose in our life. I was in ministry, looking the part, but broken. Wanting to be real, but didn't know how to be real. Didn't know what was wrong with me. And I lived like that for 43 years. And if I lived like that, I have to believe that there are other people in the room who have been living the same story. Yours may not be as dramatic as mine, because I can do it real dramatic. Because the church has done a horrible job. The church has done a horrible job at creating a climate where people can be honest. Where people can come and really be vulnerable and really get free. And Jesus always creates a climate where we can be honest. Do you remember the story where Jesus goes up to the man with the withered hand? And he says, stretch forth your hand. And the man's got two hands. He's got one good hand. Okay? Now, church people, we're going to show our good one. Jesus comes, look, Jesus, look. Here's my hand. But Jesus always creates a climate where when you're in His presence, you can show Him your brokenness. And that's what the church is supposed to be, and we've gotten it so wrong. And that's why people are running around trying to grow their business for God, but they can't do it because they are so broken, because they're plugged into a church that forces them to lie. Because we got to act like we're perfect. We got to smile. Everything's good. Everything's great. How are you? I'm blessed. I'm highly favored. And you know y'all just had a horrible argument getting to church. You know you living in a marriage that you're just tolerating. Jesus didn't bleed and die for us to tolerate marriage. He wants us to celebrate marriage. You really should be in love with them. Really. I mean, you really, really should. So I buckled down in 2013. I buckled down all by myself, and I dug in for my healing. And that time, it was October 2013, the gift of supernatural faith hit my life. I began to believe God for the impossible. My husband was still saying, stop believing. Stop talking to our children. Stop telling them to believe for a miracle. He said, because we are getting a divorce. He stood up and announced to our church. He announced to the world, we are not reconciling. It's not happening. Don't you know all them girls, all them little blonde-headed girls and brown-headed girls, and people started flying in from all over America trying to sit on the front row. I said, oh, hell no. Ain't nobody going to get my husband. Hell to the no. I said, y'all don't know about me. Oh, no, it looks good. But I can go ghetto neck in about 0 to 3 seconds. That's redneck and ghetto neck. That's me. Try Jesus. Don't try me. So supernatural faith hit my life. I dug in. I said, oh, I'm going to fight for this. I'm going to believe. I'm going to look into nothing and call it something. That's what faith is. It's when you're looking at nothing and you're calling it something. Some of y'all need to look at nothing and call it something. You need to start saying what God says about your business. You need to start saying what God says about your peace. You need to say what God says about your marriage and not what you see. That's not faith at all. Listen, it's easy to smile when you got money in the bank. It's easy to praise God when things are going good, but real faith is when it's going crazy and you can lift your hands in the air and say what God says. Say what God says. But the plan of the enemy over your life is to yoke the ox early. Like he did me. It's not just the plan for my life, it's the plan for all our lives. The plan is that he yokes you and he cripples you early so that you grow up with brokenness and deficiencies and self-esteem issues and you don't see yourself the way that God sees you. Rape happens and abuse happens and your parents divorce and you're bullied at school and it makes you who you are as an adult. That's what pain and trauma does to us. That we live so bound that we can't even operate and we can't access this freedom that he's died for. We used to live out in the country years ago and we had one of those electric fences. Now y'all dog people don't be hating on me. We had a dog. I ain't a dog person. Or a cat or a bird or a turtle or I'm not an animal person. It's not my thing. I'm too busy. I ain't got time to clean up poop in the yard, do litter boxes and put water for things, and I can't do all that. So we had a dog. I said, now listen, Ron, I ain't walking no darn dog. You're going to have to put a fence somehow around here. He said, well, Hope, we're going to put an electric one. So we put that collar on his neck. You know what I'm talking about? And he'd get up close to it and he'd get zapped. It was really fun to watch. And it didn't take long, and Zeke would not go up to he'd stay right here like, I ain't doing that. So one day, Ron goes and he takes the collar off of the dog. He was like, I'm going to put the dog in the truck with me, and we're going to ride down the road. We're just going to go take a ride. So he takes the collar off the dog, and he's like, come on, Zeke. And he's like, come on, Zeke. And he's pulling him, and the dog's like, no, I'm not going. And Ron's like, the collar's off. That is what the enemy does to us. We don't know that we're free because we've been bound so long. And the price that he's paid for you has already set you free. He who the Son is set free is really free. But how many of us are not operating in this freedom? Because we've lived bound and yoked so long. John 10:10 says the thief comes to what? To steal, kill, and destroy. He said, but I have come that you will. No, he didn't say will. That you might. Don't mean you will. He said, but I've come. It's already been done. But will you partake in this freedom? I've come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. More abundantly than what? More abundantly than you had before you met Jesus. He said, I've already paid the price. And I've come here today to get you back in the fight. I've come today to rally you up. Listen, God is no respecter of person. If he can do it for me, he can do it for you. But will you partake in this abundant life that God's already paid a price for? Ain't nobody going to do it for you. Ain't nobody going to pay for you. Probably won't be anybody clapping for you. Are you willing to do the work to get free? It was the hardest year of my life. Being separated from my family. We went months. I would write my children letters every day. At the time, my kids, 2 of them were still at home, and I would write them letters every day and mail it at the end of the week and say, don't listen to nothing your daddy's saying. I said, we are believing for a miracle. You got to agree with me. We're believing for a miracle. And it got worse and worse and worse. And I about ran around this place when you were talking about sowing seeds and giving. And when I went to Living Waters Ministry, y'all, I had the car I had a few clothes. I was packing so fast. I mean, nothing matched. I mean, I looked homeless. I looked terrible, but I had great bags. Ron came and got my car. I had no car. I had no cell phone. He cut my salary. He cut my insurance. He took my name off of all of the founding documents of the church. I'm talking about, he was serious. I mean, I had nothing. And the more I prayed and the more I believed, the worse it got. The worse it got. I lost 32 pounds in 30 days. 32 pounds. Clearly, I'm healed. Clearly, I got healed. Fat and happy, that does go together. But it got so worse. I was praying and believing. I got to a place where I was so desperate, and I went for a walk, and I really detail this in the book. This was the breaking point. And I went for a walk that day, and I was so desperate. I said, God, if you could just send one of those big transfer trucks around the corner. Lord, just take me out. Nobody loves me. Nobody cares about me. Nobody wants me. Nobody's checking on me. Nobody cares. Ron doesn't want reconciliation. If you could just take me out of this world and just take me on to heaven. And immediately, as I was saying that to him, I walked up in this little asphalt road, and a daisy had popped up. And I looked over in this old, dry, barren field, and this beautiful bird just came flying out, just tweeting like it was having the greatest day of its life. And the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, if I care about that thing, if I give it strength enough to pop through this hard, terrible ground, and if I take care of this one, he doesn't care where his next meal's coming because he knows I got him. He said, how much more will I take care of you, Hope? And faith jumped up in me, and I turned around and I started walking back to the house. And here comes the pastor, Pastor Lee, and I'm like, oh, crap, what now? I was doing good. Here you come. What now? He said, Ron's called. I'm like, great. Because every time it'd been a fight, it was talking about divorce and blah, blah, blah. And so he said, Ron wants to talk to you. He's calling in 5 minutes. And I was like, oh, Jesus. I go up and I try to get my face together. And I said, I got to get a word because I need to encourage myself. I need to get built up before he calls. And God took me to the scripture where David was going to buy a field. This is Old Testament. And he was going to buy a field to prepare an offering. And he went to the man, he's king, right? So he goes to the owner of the field and he was like, I want to buy your field. And the man said, oh, no, you're king. Here, have it. You can have it. I'll even give you all the oxen and the bird. I'll give you everything to sacrifice. And David says to him, he said, oh. He said, I will never offer to the Lord anything that doesn't cost me. And I said, God, what are you saying to me? God, I have nothing to give. I had $500, or I think it was $1,000 left in my wallet. It's all I had. What was that going to get me? But I was holding on to it for dear life. You know, I had it tucked away. $1,000, just in case I need to start my margarita business. But I was like, God, what are you saying? What am I supposed to do with this? I've done everything you've asked me. He said, you've done everything but sow a seed. I guess it ain't margaritas from here on out. I said, okay. So I got the money. I went down to Pastor Lee and Denise, and I told them what God had told me, and I slid that little $1,000 across the table. And I said, that's it. God, that's all I got. Can't do anything else. God, I'm doing everything I know to do. Phone rings. And I answered. I said, hello, expecting the worst. And he said, Hope? His voice had changed. Yes. He said, I've had a horrible night. He said, I've wrestled with God all night. And he told me not to abandon you. Okay. I can't even reenact it. I said, you know, I bent down on the table. Oh, God! And he was like, what? I said, I got my miracle, because I'd been praying for a miracle. He said, no, wait a minute. He said, I don't know what that means. And I said, I do! I do! And the rest is history. Here we are. I know there's hurdles to overcome. We all have them. One of my coined little phrases is, I got issues. You got issues. All got children. I got issues. You got issues. All God's children have issues. We all have issues. And God has not called us to perfection, or he would not have had to send Jesus. But he's called us to an upward call. Philippians 3:14. I press toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God. Not perfection, but faithfulness. Not perfection, but an upward call. But listen, you cannot run this race if your heart is not healthy. You can't grow your business for God's sake. Although you're trying and trying and trying and trying, and you're staying in the same cycle after cycle after cycle, could it be that your heart is not well? Could it be that you're not emotionally able to handle the load? Listen, doctors will even tell you that you cannot exert yourself. You can't run these big marathons. You can't lift heavy weight if you have heart problems. You can't go all the way because your heart cannot take it. And it's the same in life. It's the same with your soulish man, with your mind, your will, your emotions, your intellect. You can't handle it. It's that beautiful house, but the cracked foundation illustration. Eventually it's going to cave in on you because you don't have what it takes to sustain the weight. Could it be that it's just been God's mercy in your life, not letting you get as far as you thought you should get because you couldn't handle it? Stop pretending that you're okay when you're not. Pull back. Shut it down. Do the hard work so that you can run well. so that you can run well and healthy and with endurance till you see Jesus. I got a little video I want you to see. I saw it on Instagram. I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to use that when I go to grow your business for God. Are y'all ready? Let's go.
I'm a survivor. I'm not gonna give up. I'm not gonna stop.
What? What? That's what I'm talking about. Hebrews 12, 1 and 2 says, therefore, we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. That's the people who have gone before us. They're in the stands. They're the ones cheering us on. Let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles us, that trips us up, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer, the perfecter of our faith. Woo! We are all in the same race. And I used to think that it was one after the other. You got to get it all perfect. That's the holiness church I grew up in. You got to get it all perfect. You got to be completely flawless and no sin. Then you can run. You can do something for Jesus. Then one day you will see Jesus. No. Y'all all know that's a lie. Might preach good, but it's a lie. It's all at the same time. Have you ever run in a race? Me either. I didn't think y'all had. You did look like it. But they tell me that to run well, you have to have the proper clothes on. That it has to be light and airy and not thick and heavy, because it will weight you down. It slows your pace. And what did the scripture say? It said, take off all that stuff. You got to lay it down. You got to get off that stuff that just, those sins that so easily besets you, that slows you down. Listen, you can't run when you're angry. You can't run well for Jesus when you harbor bitterness and unforgiveness and anger and greed and addictions. You got to take all that off. Look at your neighbor and say, you need to take that off. You got to take that off. Listen, our eyes have to be fixed ahead. And listen, when you start looking around at everybody, at what they're doing, the race they're running, how many followers they have on Instagram, how much money they got in their bank, your eyes are not fixed on Jesus. That scripture says, and your eyes have to be fixed on Jesus. It'll cause you to stumble when you start turning around and looking at other people, getting sidetracked on Him, the author and the finisher of your race. Hope, if I do this, will I get it perfect? Will I never stumble? No, you're going to stumble. Though a righteous man fall, he gets back up. You run, you stumble. You get back up. You brush your knees off. You gain some more ground. You get better. You shed some of those clothes, some more of those clothes. You run some more. You run some more. You might get tired. You might have to sit down for a minute. You might have to get some water. But then you keep going. Listen, I've chosen to run my race, not comparing myself to you. Because my race is not your race. I was feeling all like, God, why am I even here? All these people own all these businesses and sold them for billions of dollars. And Lord, I can't sell nothing. But I fix my eyes on Jesus. You know what I sell? I sell freedom. I sell freedom, and it's free, but it'll cost you everything. I sell freedom. He who the Son is set free is free indeed. I'm happier today. I'm healthier today. I'm more in love today because I shed all that weight. I took the time to dig deep into my own heart and get free so that I could run my race. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to love God. I'm going to love people. I'm going to give more than I take. I'm going to be faithful with my eyes fixed on Jesus. And you might be in here today and you say, I am thoroughly exhausted. I'm weak. I'm tired of running. I feel so burdened down. I'm carrying so much weight. Or some of you may be just standing on the beginning of the line saying, I'm scared to death to even take off because I'm afraid I'm going to do what she did. But I'm here today to tell you to run your race. Why? Because that race he's talking about is a relay race. That's why there's a great cloud of witnesses sitting in the stands, looking down on you, cheering you on, saying, you better get up, you better get up, you better get up, because you're about to come up here and sit in the stands with me. Because if you don't do your part to run well, you can't hand this off to the next runner. There are people that are depending on you to run your race well so that they can run their race well. And I've come here today to tell you to run your race. I got everybody a gift today. And I want you, when you get it, I want you to stand up in your seat. And I want you to commit to Jesus that I'm going to run my race. That I'm going to run my race well. I'm not going to get tripped up on what my neighbor's doing. I'm not going to get tripped up on what my business partner's doing. I'm not going to get tripped up on what everybody's doing on social media. I got my eyes fixed on Jesus, and I'm going to run my race, and I'm going to finish my course. Woo! Hey! Come on! Who's ready to run their race? Who's ready to run their race? Woo! Come on, girl. You better get to running. Woo! And every time you get tired, I want you to look at this. I want you to look at this. Guys, I almost lost everything. But God. There is nothing that you have done, nothing that you will ever do that can separate you from the love of God and His call on your life, His hand on your life, the purpose of God in your life. You may think it's so insignificant, but if you don't do what you do, the people behind you that you are connected to, that you're responsible for, won't be able to run well. Do you know shears cannot cut a tree down? But an axe can't cut hair. Shears can't cut a tree down, but an axe can't cut hair. So you just be you. You know, if you're an elbow in the body of Christ and you're not doing your job, the whole body's sick. The whole body's sick. The whole body's crippled. It can't do certain things because you have looked at yourself and your role is so silly and so insignificant. I'm here today to tell you, get back in the race. Get back in the race. Come on, lift it up. I need y'all to get some video of this. I need you to get some video of this. Get back in the race today. You say, I hadn't even started. Well, get in the race. Come on, let's run. Let's run and keep running till Jesus comes with our eyes fixed on Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. God bless you. I love you.